The Galactic Security Council regretted hiring human guards who treat every threat like an action movie scene. Part 1. The hiring mistake. The Galactic Security Council's headquarters was the pride of the unified stars, a gleaming monument to interstellar cooperation that hung in space like a disco ball designed by committee, which coincidentally was exactly how it had been designed. Every surface sparkled with an enthusiasm that would make a chrome factory jealous, and the air was permanently scented with what the maintenance staff insisted was the smell of democracy, but suspiciously resembled vanilla air freshener. Now picture this perfect bubble of bureaucratic bliss being told they needed to cut their security budget by 80%. The council chamber erupted into the kind of chaos usually reserved for black hole disruptions, with tentacles waving and antennae vibrating at frequencies that made the cafeteria's jello cups dance. "We could hire humans," suggested Council Member Blorp, immediately regretting the words as they escaped his speaking orifices. The chamber fell so silent you could hear a photon drop. High Councillor Vectara, all 7 of her eyes twitching simultaneously, turned several interesting shades of purple. The same humans who solved their first interplanetary conflict with what they called a, and I quote, quick pickup game of baseball. Their security services are surprisingly affordable, Blorp pressed on, his gelatinous form quivering with each word. And they do have an impressive track record of stopping threats, along with an equally impressive track record of destroying everything in a 12-parsec radius, muttered Vectara. But budgets were budgets, and after 16 hours of debate and 3 stress-induced molting incidents, the motion passed. Enter Jack Sterling, former Hollywood stuntman turned security chief, whose resume listed surviving 17 on-screen explosions as a key qualification. He strode into the council chamber like he owned the place, which immediately set off 14 different cultural faux pas alarms, and caused at least 1 diplomatic incident before he'd even opened his mouth. "Ladies, gentlemen, and various states of matter," he announced, flashing a smile that somehow managed to sparkle, despite the council chamber's strict no-sparkle regulations. "Your security concerns are officially over." Behind him stood his hand-picked team, Maria Boom Boom Rodriguez, whose solution to every problem started and ended with explosives. Dana Princess Titanium, a hacker who insisted on wearing a tiara while coding because style is as important as substance. And Theodore Muscles McGee, a giant of a man who collected rare flowers and could bench press a small shuttle. "We've reviewed your security protocols," Sterling continued, either ignoring or completely missing the collective cringe that rippled through the council. "And I've got to say they're a little bland. But don't worry, we're going to add some pizzazz." "Pizzazz is explicitly forbidden by Statute 7249B, Vectara pointed out weakly. "First order of business," Sterling pressed on, as Rodriguez gleefully unpacked what appeared to be enough explosives to redecorate a small moon. "We're going to need to install some emergency zip lines." "What's wrong with the gravity-controlled emergency descent systems?" asked a concerned council member. "Not cinematic enough," Sterling replied with absolute conviction. "Also, we're going to need a helicopter." In space, Vectara's voice had reached a pitch previously only achieved by quantum particles under extreme duress. "You never know," contributed Muscles, carefully watering a tiny succulent he'd somehow managed to grow in his tactical vest. "Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it." Princess Titanium was already gleefully rewiring the Council's state-of-the-art security systems, humming the Mission Impossible theme tune as her tiara reflected dancing lights across the chamber's pristine walls. "Oh wow, you guys are still using quantum encryption? That's cute. Ever heard of the Die Hard protocol?" As the humans enthusiastically began their security upgrades, High Councillor Vectara turned to Blorp and whispered, "I hope you realize that if this goes wrong, you'll be reassigned to the bureaucratic subcommittee for watching paint dry in the Gamma Quadrant." Blorp's only response was to sink lower in his hoverchair, wondering if it was too late to request a transfer to the Department of handling extremely dangerous, but at least predictable supernovas. Little did any of them know this was just the beginning of what would become known throughout the galaxy as the Sterling Incident, or as humans later called it, Tuesday. The first real test of the Council's new human security team came exactly 6 days, 4 hours, and 23 minutes into their tenure. Not that anyone was counting, except for Vectara's personal anxiety tracker, which had already filed for overtime pay. It started, as these things often do, with a dispute over lunch. Ambassador Crix of the Silicon Hive and Representative Moop of the Gelatinous Confederation both reached for the last space taco in the cafeteria. In standard Council protocol, this would trigger the activation of the diplomatic food distribution algorithm, followed by 16 forms in triplicate and a formal meditation session. What actually happened was Jack Sterling diving across 3 tables while shouting, "Get down, Mr. President!" "This is a diplomatic facility," Vectara pointed out from beneath her hover desk. "We don't have a president." "Details," Sterling replied, already speaking into his wrist communicator. "Team, this is Big Eagle. We have a code speed 2, fast and furious. I repeat, this is not a drill." Before anyone could explain that it was in fact very much not anything requiring that level of response, Boom Boom Rodriguez rappelled down from a ventilation shaft she had absolutely no business being in. "I got the package secured, boss," she announced, somehow having acquired the contested space taco and stored it in a reinforced containment unit, normally reserved for unstable isotopes. Princess Titanium's voice crackled over the comm system she'd upgraded with what she called more dramatic frequencies. "Security cameras show possible hostile intent in Sector 7. Someone's using a plastic fork instead of the mandated biodegradable utensils." "Mother of mercy," breathed Sterling. "They're escalating. Muscles, what's your position?" "I'm in the garden sector," Muscles replied calmly. "My peace lilies suggest no immediate threat, but they've been wrong before. That time on Jupiter still haunts them." The cafeteria had descended into the kind of chaos usually reserved for black hole factory clearance sales. Ambassador Crix was unsuccessfully trying to explain that they only wanted lunch, while Representative Moop had accidentally absorbed 3 chairs in their agitated state. "Don't worry," Sterling announced to the room at large, striking a pose that would have made any action movie director weep with joy. "I have a plan." Vectara, who was developing a remarkable talent for detecting imminent property damage, immediately initiated Emergency Protocol 12, preemptively calling the insurance company. What followed was, in Sterling's words, a tactical redistribution of culinary assets utilizing advanced vertical insertion techniques. In everyone else's words, it was 4 humans setting up an unnecessarily complex pulley system to lower the space taco onto a table perfectly centered between the 2 diplomats, accompanied by enough smoke effects to make a fog machine factory jealous. "Now that's what I call diplomatic resolution," Sterling declared proudly, as sprinklers activated throughout the sector. "The traditional protocol would have cost us exactly 0 credits in property damage," Vectara noted, reviewing the preliminary incident report. "Your solution somehow managed to total 3 hover chairs, 1 quantum-stabilized table, and how did you manage to break the artificial gravity in Sector 4? "Necessary collateral for the greater good," Princess Titanium chimed in, still hanging upside down from her tactical zipline. "Also, while I was in the security mainframe, I noticed some weird encryption patterns. Could be nothing. Could be the plot of Die Hard in space. Who can really say?" "I can say," Vectara replied. "I can definitively say it's not." She was interrupted by Boom Boom Rodriguez testing what she called a small defensive charge near the waste recycling units, causing the entire station to shift 3 degrees to the left. "Good news," Muscles called over the comms. "My orchids say that slight station rotation should help with their photosynthesis. Also, I think I saw someone suspicious near the diplomatic mailroom. They were walking too normally." Sterling's eyes lit up with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for people about to make very expensive mistakes. "Team prep for Operation Ocean's 12 parsecs. I've got a feeling this lunch dispute was just the beginning." As the humans rushed off to investigate their self-generated mystery, Representative Moop turned to Ambassador Crix and asked, "Would you like to split the taco?" "That would be lovely," Crix replied. "Should we tell them it was never actually a dispute?" "And miss whatever they're going to do next? Absolutely not. This is better than our entertainment feeds back home." Vectara, overhearing this exchange, began seriously considering if she could classify her antacids as emergency security equipment. Meanwhile, somewhere in the station, 4 humans were enthusiastically preparing for a threat that didn't exist, completely unaware that they were about to stumble onto one that very much did. The property damage counter, displaying proudly in the security office, ticked over to display a number that made the council's insurance provider spontaneously evolve the ability to weep. In the 3 weeks since the Great Space Taco incident, the human security team had investigated 17 potential threats to the council. These included, but were not limited to, a malfunctioning coffee maker solved with shaped charges, a stuck turbo lift, zip lines were involved, and what turned out to be a particularly ambitious cleaning drone, now resting in pieces after a chase sequence that violated several laws of physics. "Your security team," Vectara announced during the emergency session she'd called, "has caused more damage in 3 weeks than the Council has seen in 3 centuries. "But you have to admit," Sterling countered from his position hanging upside down from the ceiling, "for tactical advantages," he claimed, "nothing bad has happened on our watch." "Nothing bad was happening before your watch." "Exactly," Sterling winked. "You're welcome." It was at this precise moment that Ambassador Sithlak glided into the chamber. As always, they were the picture of diplomatic perfection, from their iridescent scales to their perfectly positioned anti-gravity accessories. If you looked up suspicious in the Galactic Dictionary, you wouldn't find their picture there, which, as Princess Titanium had pointed out, was exactly what made them suspicious. "High Counselor," Sithlak's voice was smooth as quantum-polished glass. "I trust these security consultants aren't causing too much concern." "Only all of it," Vectara muttered. Sterling, who had somehow materialized right side up next to the ambassador without anyone seeing him move, narrowed his eyes. "You know what this reminds me of?" "If you say Die Hard," Vectara warned. "Under Siege 2, Dark Territory," Sterling corrected. "Muscles, what do your plants think?" Muscles, who had converted an entire unused conference room into what he called a tactical greenhouse, consulted with a particularly opinionated Fern. "The photosynthesizers are picking up bad vibes, boss, and my Venus flytrap just hissed at the ambassador's latest trade proposal." "Your security protocols are charming," Sithlak said in a tone that suggested they found them anything but, though perhaps a bit primitive for our sophisticated facility. "Primitive?" Boom Boom Rodriguez emerged from a maintenance duct that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. "I'll have you know our methods are cutting edge. Watch this." Before anyone could stop her, she demonstrated their new intruder detection system, which involved holographic tripwires, smoke machines, and what she swore was a very small antimatter charge. "See?" She beamed proudly as emergency containment fields snapped into place across 3 sectors. "State of the art." Princess Titanium, who had been unusually quiet while performing what she called a routine system diagnostic, and what the Council's IT department called digital terrorism, suddenly sat up straight, her tiara slightly askew. "Hey boss, remember those weird encryption patterns? They're back, and they're getting frisky with our quantum firewalls." "Frisky how?" Sterling demanded, already reaching for his entirely unnecessary grappling hook. "Like Ocean's 11 meets Hackers meets wait, something's not right." Her fingers flew across her holographic keyboard. "Someone's been accessing restricted council protocols, trade routes, security codes, diplomatic schedules." "Shouldn't you have noticed this earlier?" Vectara asked, trying very hard to keep her voice level. "We were busy investigating that suspicious potted plant in Sector 6, Muscles explained. "Turned out it was plastic, But you can never be too careful. My orchids are still traumatized. Ambassador Zethlak cleared their throat. Surely you don't think there's actually a security threat? Perhaps your systems are simply malfunctioning, like everything else your species touches? Sterling's eyes narrowed further, achieving a squint that would have made Clint Eastwood proud. You know what this reminds me of now? Please, Vectara begged, no more movie references. Face off, Sterling declared triumphantly. Princess, run a deep scan on all diplomatic communications from the past month. Muscles, consult your most paranoid plants. Boom, boom. Try not to blow up anything load-bearing for at least an hour. No promises, Rodriguez replied, already tinkering with something that made nearby quantum sensors nervous. As the humans scattered to their self-assigned tasks, Zethlak watched them with an expression that might have been concern, if concern typically involved calculating blast radiuses and escape vectors. High Counselor, they said smoothly, perhaps we should discuss increasing security oversight. These humans seem rather unstable. Oh, now that's just hurtful, Sterling called from somewhere in the ventilation system. We're perfectly stable. It's the universe that's crazy. Right, team? My succulents agree, echoed Muscle's voice from the tactical greenhouse. Found more weird code, Princess announced. It's like someone copied our security protocols but made them evil, and not fun evil like in the movies. Boring evil. Corporate evil. Setting up countermeasures, Rodriguez called out cheerfully, followed by a sound that the Council's physics department would later classify as theoretically impossible. Vectara, watching Ambassador Zethlak's scales shift colour ever so slightly, had a sudden, terrible realization. The humans might actually be onto something. Which meant that for the first time in Council history, an action movie approach might be justified. The insurance company's AI representative chose that exact moment to achieve sentience, take one look at the incoming claims, and immediately revert to binary, just to avoid dealing with it. Somewhere in the station, a digital countdown began ticking away, because if there's one thing humans had taught the galaxy, it's that there's always a countdown. Part 4, The Big Break. The good news, Princess Titanium announced to the emergency security briefing, her tiara now equipped with what she called tactical LEDs, is that I've cracked the encryption. And the bad news? Vectara asked, already reaching for her prescription-strength antacids. We're going to need a bigger explosion. Finally, Rodriguez punched the air so enthusiastically she accidentally activated one of her spare detonators. A distant boom was followed by the sound of apologetic sprinklers. Sterling, who had insisted on holding this meeting while everyone repelled from the ceiling, for practice, he claimed, pulled up a holographic display. Here's what we know. Someone's been using Council diplomatic codes to arrange what looks like a perfectly legitimate conference. That would be because it is a legitimate conference, Vectara interrupted. The annual Galactic Peace and Prosperity Summit starts tomorrow. We've been planning it for months. Exactly, Sterling pointed finger guns at her. The perfect cover, Princess. Show them what you found. Princess Titanium's fingers danced across her keyboard like a caffeinated pianist. See these shipping manifests? They're labelled as peace conference supplies. But unless your idea of peace involves enough cloaked energy signatures to power a small sun, something's fishy. My peace lilies concur, Muscles added helpfully. They've been stress-blooming all week. Vectara's primary eyes widened while her secondary ones narrowed in confusion. Are you suggesting that someone's using the biggest peace conference in the galaxy as cover for a massive heist? Sterling grinned. It's like Ocean's 11 meets Independence Day meets. Actually, this one's pretty unique. We need to alert the Council immediately. Vectara moved toward the comm panel. Wait! Sterling held up a hand dramatically. We can't tell anyone yet. We've got a mole. Several, actually, Muscles noted. They're great for the garden's ecosystem. A traitor, Sterling clarified. Someone high up. Someone with access to all the security codes. Someone who's been a little too perfect. Ambassador Zethlak, Princess Titanium said. "I was building up to that dramatically." "Sorry, boss, but we don't have time. Look at this." She pulled up another display. "I backtraced the encrypted signals. They're being bounced through the diplomatic corps' private channels, but they all originate from Izathlak's office, and they're being sent to—" "The Crimson Nebula Pirates," Rodriguez finished, for once not blowing anything up. "Most notorious gang in the sector, known for hitting impossible targets and leaving no traces, except that one time with the exploding space yacht, but that wasn't their fault. The yacht owner really should have read the warning label on those quantum torpedoes." Vectara sank into her hoverchair. "This is impossible. Izathlak has been a respected diplomat for decades." "The perfect cover," Sterling nodded sagely. "But we've got them now. All we need to do is— Why is everyone looking at me like that?" "Because," Vectara said slowly, "Izathlak is standing right behind you." "Fascinating theory." Izathlak's smooth voice came from the doorway. "Though I'm afraid you'll have trouble proving it to the Council, especially since your human security team is about to suffer a tragic accident involving a malfunctioning waste recycling system." Several armed figures decloaked around the room, their weapons humming ominously. "Now this," Sterling grinned, "is exactly how Act 2 should end." "This isn't a movie," Vectara and Izathlak said simultaneously. "That's exactly what people in movies always say." Sterling reached for his tactical belt. "Princess?" "Already on it, boss. Vectara, you might want to hold on to something." "Why would I need to—" "Oh no." The lights went out, emergency sirens began to wail, and somewhere in the darkness Boom Boom Rodriguez laughed in a way that made insurance adjusters wake up screaming. "You humans are entertaining," Izathlak sighed, "but predictable. Did you really think I wouldn't plan for your theatrical antics?" "Oh no," Sterling agreed cheerfully. "We were counting on it. See, while you were watching us run around like action movie extras, I was copying your entire operations database," Princess finished. "And I was planting charges in tactically dramatic locations," Rodriguez added. "And my plants were recording everything through their quantum-enhanced photoreceptors," Muscles chimed in. "Also, that ficus by your office, total narc—" Izathlak's scales flickered in what might have been concern. "It doesn't matter. By this time tomorrow the Council will be in chaos, and—" They were interrupted by Vectara clearing her throat. "Actually, this emergency meeting was being broadcast live to the entire Council, standard procedure for all security briefings. I thought your perfect diplomatic record would have taught you that." For the first time, Izathlak's perfect composure cracked. That's not possible. I disabled all broadcasts." "You disabled all official broadcasts," Princess corrected, her tiara glowing smugly. "But you missed my backup system, running through the station's entertainment channels. We're currently the highest-rated show in 3 sectors. Guess you could say," Sterling put on a pair of sunglasses that he definitely hadn't been wearing a second ago, "the plot just got twisted." "That doesn't even make sense in this context," Vectara sighed. "Doesn't have to, it's dramatic." Izathlak raised their weapon. "This isn't over." "Actually," Muscle said, "it is. My Venus flytrap says hi." The massive plant, which had somehow grown to fill the entire doorway behind the Izathlak, snapped its jaws with prejudice. As security drones, the loyal ones, swarmed in and the backup lights came on, Vectara turned to Sterling. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but good work. Though we still need to stop whatever they have planned for tomorrow." Sterling's grin widened. "Don't worry, for once we actually have a subtle plan." "Really?" "Well, subtle for us." The property damage counter chose that moment to spontaneously combust. Having reached numbers it was never programmed to display. In the brief silence that followed, Rodriguez whispered, "So, can I blow something up now?" "Soon," Sterling promised. "Very soon." Part 5, the climactic showdown at the annual Galactic Peace and Prosperity Summit began exactly as planned, which immediately made Sterling suspicious. In his extensive action movie experience, nothing that started normally ever stayed that way. "Status report," he whispered into his comm unit, which he'd insisted on disguising as a potted plant pin, despite nobody being fooled. "East sector clear," Rodriguez reported, "though I still say we should have gone with plan explode everything." "West sector secure," Muscles added. My tactical IV is in position. Also, it's developed a taste for pirate boots, which I didn't even know was possible. Security systems nominal, Princess Titanium chimed in. And by nominal, I mean I've rigged them to play the 1812 overture when I hit this big red button I installed. Why the 1812 overture? Vectara asked from her position at the main podium. Because everything's better with cannon fire, Princess and Rodriguez answered in unison. The summit's main chamber was packed with diplomats from across the galaxy. Some floated, some slithered, some existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, which made the seating arrangements particularly challenging. And scattered throughout the crowd were several dozen beings who were trying just a bit too hard to look diplomatic. I count 37 pirates, Sterling muttered. You can tell by the way they keep checking their watches. Real diplomats never care what time it is. 42 pirates, Muscles corrected. My ficus is never wrong about these things. Still upset about not being allowed to bring in my giant carnivorous sundew, though. The Council has a strict limit on man-eating plants after last year's incident, Vectara reminded him. Now please be quiet. I'm about to begin the opening ceremony. She raised her primary appendages for silence, and the assembled dignitaries settled down. Honored representatives of the galaxy, we gather today in the spirit of peace. That's when everything went wrong, or right, depending on your perspective on explosive entertainment. The lights didn't just go out, they shattered in a spectacular display that Princess would later describe as totally on purpose and definitely part of the plan. Emergency force fields snapped into place as armed figures materialized throughout the chamber. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted states of matter, a voice boomed through the speakers. This is now under the control of the Crimson Nebula pirates. Please remain calm and hand over any valuables. Also, your governmental authorization codes. Those too. Now? Rodriguez asked hopefully. Sterling grinned. Now. The 1812 overture blasted through the chamber's sound system at what physics professors would later classify as enthusiastically irresponsible decibel levels. Muscles' tactical plants burst from their carefully positioned pots, grabbing pirates with vines that had apparently been working out. Princess's special lighting program activated, turning the chamber into something between a disco and a tactical nightmare. You have got to be kidding me, the pirate leader growled, as Sterling descended from the ceiling on what appeared to be a zip line made of pure light. Actually, Sterling announced, I prefer to think of it as Act 3. Rodriguez's minor explosives created what she called tactical distractions throughout the chamber. Muscles' plants formed a living barrier between the pirates and the diplomats, with his prize Venus flytrap apparently having the time of its life. Princess, her tiara now sporting what looked like mini laser turrets, orchestrated chaos from her command center. This is exactly what we were trying to prevent, Vectara shouted over the comms. We wanted to stop them without turning the summit into an action movie. With all due respect, High Counselor, Sterling replied, swinging past on another improbable light rope. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire and explosions and carnivorous plants. And... Rodriguez, was that a glitter bomb? Tactical sparkle device. The pirates, for their part, were discovering several universal truths. Never bring energy weapons to a plant fight. It's really hard to maintain villainous composure while covered in strategic glitter. Humans are insane. Fall back, the pirate leader ordered. Activate the super-secret ship hidden in the station's diplomatic hangar, Princess interrupted over the speakers. Already taken care of. Turns out my tiara doubles as a pretty good ship-to-ship missile guidance system. Who knew? The backup fleet approaching from the Crimson Nebula. Currently being led on a wild space chase by remote-controlled decoys, Sterling grinned. Amazing what you can do with some spare parts and too many action movie marathons. The fail-safe explosive devices. Oh, honey, Rodriguez called out. Those stopped being your explosives about 10 minutes ago. Amateur work, by the way. Not nearly enough pizzazz. The pirate leader looked around at their failing plan, their captured crew, and the humans who had somehow turned a peace conference into a combination of action movie, garden show, and disco night. "This isn't possible," they declared. "We had everything planned perfectly." "That was your first mistake," Sterling landed next to them. "Perfect plans make terrible movies." And then, because the universe has a sense of dramatic timing, Muscles' Venus flytrap decided this was the perfect moment for its big finale. The pirate leader's indignant shriek was cut short by what Vectara would later officially record as botanical intervention. As security drones, extensively modified by Princess to play victory music, rounded up the remaining pirates, Sterling turned to Vectara with his biggest grin yet. "So," he asked, "did we save the day with style or what?" Vectara looked around at her once pristine chamber, now featuring 3 different species of combat-trained plants, enough glitter to be visible from orbit, scorch marks that somehow spelled out "Boom Boom was here," a fully choreographed light show, and several diplomats who were cautiously asking if this could be a regular summit feature. "I hate that I have to say this," she sighed, "but yes, you did." The property damage counter, having achieved sentience purely to cope with today's events, decided to retire to a nice, quiet job calculating black hole equations. In the distance, Rodriguez could be heard asking, "So, can I keep the glitter bombs?" Part 6, The Aftermath. 1 month after what galactic media had dubbed the Sterling-esque show in the universe, the Galactic Security Council convened for what Vectara desperately hoped would be a normal, explosion-free session. "The final damage report," she announced to the assembled council, "is—" She paused, double-checked the number, and developed a slight eye twitch. "I'm going to need everyone to remember their meditation training before I continue." "It can't be that bad," Councilmember Blorp offered hopefully. "The total comes to 47 trillion credits, 6 permanently altered laws of physics, and 1 insurance AI that's refusing to come out of its server farm until we promise never to hire humans again." Sterling, now officially promoted to Chief of Galactic Security, much to Vectara's ongoing existential crisis, raised his hand. "In our defense, we did save everyone from space pirates." "Using tactical glitter," Vectara pointed out. "Environmental-friendly tactical glitter," Rodriguez corrected from her new position as head of defensive innovations. "Also, the physics violations were totally within acceptable action movie parameters." Princess Titanium, recently appointed Director of Cyber Operations, looked up from her now crystalline Tiara supercomputer. "Don't forget about the entertainment revenue. The security footage went viral across 12 galaxies. We're trending higher than that video of the quantum cat that's simultaneously grumpy and happy." "Which brings us to our next point," Vectara sighed. "Due to overwhelming public demand, the Council has been strongly encouraged to maintain what they're calling our dynamic new security approach. The plants are very pleased with this development," Muscles announced from behind his desk, which had somehow become a small jungle. "Especially since we're implementing the new Botanical Defense Initiative. Did you know Venus flytraps can be trained to recognize diplomatic credentials?" "Unfortunately," Vectara continued, "this means we need to formally codify the— what are you calling them, Sterling?" "Action movie contingency plans." He pulled out a datapad with far too many explosion graphics. "We've got them all categorized. Die-hard protocol for building infiltration, speed protocol for runaway transport situations, mission impossible, protocol for undercover work." "Is the Fast and Furious protocol just Rodriguez blowing things up while shouting about family?" "Pretty much, yeah." Vectara turned all 7 of her eyes skyward, seeking patience. "The Council has also received 3,000 applications from other humans wanting to join the security force." "Ooh, can we start an academy?" Sterling's eyes lit up. "We can call it Police Academy." "No, wait. We are not naming anything after any more Earth movies," Vectara declared. "However, we are implementing a new training program. The Council has recognized that while your methods are unconventional—" "Insane," coughed several Council members. "They are effectively deterring threats. No one wants to attack a facility that might respond with choreographed explosions and carnivorous plants." "Don't forget the reality show deal," Princess added. Season 1 of Security Force Action Division starts filming next week. We're going to need bigger explosions. And more plants, Muscles nodded. The ficus has been practicing its camera angles. Vectara held up all of her appendages for silence. The point is, despite everything, despite the property damage, the physics violations, the glitter that's now achieved sentience in Sector 7. That was an accident, Rodriguez muttered. Mostly, you've actually made the Council safer. So, congratulations on your permanent appointment. May the galaxy survive it. Sterling stood up, striking his most dramatic pose. Don't worry, High Counselor. We'll keep everything totally under control. At that exact moment, the emergency alarms began blaring. Proximity alert, Princess announced, fingers flying across her holographic keyboard. Unidentified ship approaching. Wait, are those space ninjas? Sterling's grin threatened to break several laws of facial geometry. Team, who's up for a sequel? As Vectara slowly lowered her head to her desk, she could have sworn she heard the insurance AI sobbing in binary. Somewhere in the station, Rodriguez was probably already preparing the glitter bombs. Muscles' plants were undoubtedly stretching for action, and Princess's new security system had started playing what sounded suspiciously like action movie theme music. The property damage counter, which had recently joined a support group for traumatized AIs, took one look at Sterling's expression and decided to take an early retirement. Here we go again, Vectara muttered, reaching for her industrial-strength antacids. At least this time we're insured for musical numbers. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, millions of viewers leaned forward in their seats, eagerly awaiting the next episode of the galaxy's most explosive reality show. The end, until the sequel, obviously.